All right. How's everybody doing tonight? Can you hear me okay? A couple people in the chat room. We're going to do a real open forum, kind of a question and answer session here. You know, kind of just open forum, altcoins, Bitcoin, major coins, whatever you guys are interested in. And I'll just, I'll do a brief review of, we'll see what the highest volume things that are moving on Binance. So, all right, everyone's chiming in. We'll see how many come, but we're just going to get started. Do you guys have anything you want me to look at just because you're first here? Maybe there should be a reward for that. Is there anything you guys want me to start with? Do you have any requests? And while I wait for those requests to pile up, I'm just going to jump over. Let's take a look at Binance, and I'm going to take a look at the most volume here. Clearly, Ethereum. Interestingly enough, at least on Binance, has had quite a bit of volume here. And EOS. We'll look at Ethereum later, but let's jump to EOS as an altcoin. I kind of have, as a default setting, the 4-hour chart. I find that it gives me a little bit enough time to not overreact to every move that happens. And just kind of on a first glance, we're clearly seeing a pretty well-defined downtrend here on EOS. Multiple rejection points, near that middle Bollinger Band, that SMA 20. Although you can kind of make an argument, we're seeing quote unquote bottom type volume, and typically you will see the most volume at the top or the bottom of a chart. And so we're seeing this nice steady volume here, which is notable for EOS. A couple other clues, we do see we're kind of recovering from a severe oversold RSI, but that happened twice before, and there really was no reward. You had a decent channel here to trade, but if you were looking to go long, depending on where you jumped in, it was a little bit of a false signal. So in terms of a longer term reversal, this drastically oversold RSI really doesn't tell us much. It would have been a decent clue here, if you were trying to scalp it a little bit, but you haven't bounced back yet. So you got to kind of wait and see. I always look at the on-balance volume for signs of strength and weakness, and there's really still a lot of weakness yet. So, essentially you can draw a line here of a downtrend. If you take this peak here from early June to this peak here in middle of July, it's a pretty straight downtrend line. You want to see the on-balance volume break up, and that break might be a signal for you, combined maybe with a candle signal or something else. Let's check out the chat room. Steam, none given. I don't think you can do Steam coin on TradeView. Let me just take a look. I could be wrong. Yeah, you can. All right, we'll check out Steam coin as the first request. Volume is okay. Let's zoom out here. So, it looks like a missile, right? It's just heading straight down. And but pretty much everything looks like that. You have a recent support break, which you would have wanted to see this area hold. Some nice volume cluster here that came in, and unfortunately, it didn't really do anything. It didn't really mark a bottom because we broke that low with a close below here, 10 hours ago. But at least the on-balance volume looks a little bit better than EOS, and you actually have a slight bullish divergence. You can notice on a bullish divergence where you have an oscillator like the on-balance volume is putting in a higher low. So we have our first low here. Here's the second low. Okay, here we have a lower low, even though it's mostly sideways, a little bit down. So that's an early clue. So this is actually starting to show some signs that a bottom may be in this area. But we're really not anywhere near there yet. I would say this is potentially an area of interest. More bullish divergence here, stochastic to RSI, higher lows. And the RSI is not doing much for you yet, but I'd say this is something worth watching. Steam looks decent. Frag Skins wants to know ICX. I know ICX has been popular. It was popular, in the early part of the year. But just look at this thing's been just getting beat to the ground. Look compare this to Steam. Look at this on-balance volume. It can't find a bottom. Lower and lower and lower. You could argue maybe a bit of a falling wedge forming on the on-balance volume, but I'm not necessarily seeing that reflected in the candles yet. Oopsie. Let me just kind of zoom in a little bit. You can see, look at this downward pressure. you're looking for the follow through volumes. You see in these 2 4-hour candles, there's quite a bit of sell volume, and you want to see a reaction. So like this is an okay candle here, this nice green one, but there's not a ton of volume, on it compared to the prior candle. So you always kind of want to look for some clues, and there's really are no good clues of a bottom here. This was a nice little bounce here, rejected middle Bollinger, and we broke that low. Even though RSI is oversold, I actually don't really have any confidence of a bounce here. So I'm kind of bearish on that. Mr. Anderson is asking about Nano. Let's do Nano. Yeah, I mean, this is the one, it was XRB, right? It became Nano. It was like rail blocks. I can see the messages. I see you. So yeah, but I mean, this is pretty weak. I mean, we're just breaking support here. You're going to want to see you're going to want to see these large red candles. That's a lot of bear force, and you're going to want to see a smaller real candle body, and you want to see a string of them in a row. So like this is one here. If we had like 4, 5, 6 more in a row, you'd start trading in what's called trading in a box, or horizontal sideways, horizontal range. Even though we're kind of drastically oversold here, there's really no confidence. I don't see any signs of strength. So I am bearish on Nano, my friend. Let's take a look. All right, so I did all of those requests. Let's just jump into, we'll jump back and we'll finish up what we're doing real quick. EOS, BNB, Binance Coin. This has kind of been an interesting hedge, guys. When you know that Bitcoin's, when you suspect rather, Bitcoin's going to go down, rejection at a support area, some type of a bear break, and you can sense it perhaps in the sentiment. BNB, I mean, it's been a decent hedge here. I mean, Bitcoin lost 5%, but BNB was up like 10%, at least until right now. The question is, are we going to put in a lower high here on the 4-hour chart? So I've been watching BNB kind of closely, and I've been, if you follow me on Twitter, which you probably do, I've been noticing it, the really nice movement. We have a beautiful V bottom here, double bottom, and the break of this area was significant. This is an important area to break on that bounce, because you would normally expect, if every other altcoin has been doing that, where you're having a nice bottom and you're getting rejected at prior support. Because remember, support, when broken, turns into resistance, and vice versa. When you break resistance, it turns into support. So right here, this area, which was initially resistance, which was essentially a bullish continuation pattern, potentially a bull flag here that broke out. On this pullback here, look where we found support. Sorry, it's a little bit crude, but I don't know why it's drawing it like that. But you get the sense. Let's see. There you get the sense. So basically right here, right? It became support, that area right here. So it's always something to keep an eye on. The question is now, we look like we're putting in a lower high. So this is our first high. This is potentially a lower high. We have to wait and see though. This is a pretty good green candle bar here with some nice volume behind it. And there's a general principle that the larger the candle, the greater the chance of continuation. And also, Steve Nissen talks about this a lot in his Japanese candlestick books, especially the second one, Beyond Candlesticks. The middle part of this candle should be support on a pullback. So that's kind of something to keep an eye on. BNB, XLM. Let's see. XLM. I like XLM, even though it's really getting beat down. All of the ones that have a chance to get listed on Coinbase, XLM, ETC, what is it, ZCL? Yeah, ZCL, ZRX, and ADA. I think that's it. I mean, any of those I think should outperform the field in the short period, in the short time, in the interim period, because there's a little bit of a reason for people to jump into those versus another one, given that there's that potential future catalyst. That being said, XLM. Yeah, all right. So this is, I mean, it's notable to me that we have an area right here that was resistance. We just talked about that. And look where twice now, even though it's not the same level, you could say, well, it broke support here, but where it found support was where you would expect it to find. I talk about it a lot, logical horizontal support, prior resistance, which is now support. So there is a chance for a bounce here, but we're already seeing a little bit of weakness here in the last couple hours. I mean, you could argue this is not a hanging man, because you can't have a hanging man. A hanging man has to come after an uptrend. So a lot of people, I hear people say that, oh, look at the hanging man. Can't have a hanging man after just 3 candles off the bottom. So it's really, that's just a hammer. We'll see if there's any follow through, but there wasn't a ton of volume on it. Stochastics RSI is suggesting a short-term overbought area. So if you look what happened in the last couple times, nice bounce, you know, rejected, bounce again, but lower high. So we have lower highs here, and the on-balance volume isn't really showing me any kind of confidence. So even though I just said it's nice that it bounced on the support here, I think it probably maybe goes to 39, 38, 39, and then maybe comes back and tests this area again. So I just think this has a little bit more work to do before it starts looking bullish. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. ZEC, not ZCL. How do you view the Lookie has a question, and thanks for joining us today, Lookie. How do you view the BTC dominance on CoinMarketCap? So that's actually an interesting question. I just there's a tweet it says also the rest of your question. I am looking to make a play when BTC dominance will reach 50%, as I don't see it going much higher. I think that's a fair argument, but it's a little bit, because it's a fraction, right? So there's 2 parts of that equation, and the dominance. So it could I mean, if the altcoins just keep going down, then BTC dominance will go up, and there's no real value to jumping on altcoins unless you know there's going to be a strong Bitcoin. Because the Bitcoin is the denominator, it's the value to all. Everything's traded in Satoshis for the most part, and what you see me chart is for most part Satoshis, you know, / BTC. So it's still decent idea to start to look to scale in around 50%, because you know, it's unlikely for it to go higher, but maybe it does. Maybe it goes to 60, 65%. I mean, it's hard to know. It's hard to know with the market, because the rules have changed, especially since you added futures late last year. So that's a decent argument. I did see someone, the other side of that is there's a tweet I just replied to where someone was talking about how Bitcoin dominance will stay high, and so therefore you should get into Bitcoin, but it's not great to have a high dominance if the thing you're dominating, that value went down. So if Bitcoin, you know, let's say Bitcoin goes down 30%, I'm not saying it will, and altcoins go down 90%, dominance will go up, but Bitcoin still went down. So, you know, you just have to kind of think about it that way, both sides of the equation. Crimson Lion, can you make sense of Bytecoin, BCN? Is that, yeah, let's take a look at that one. I don't know that I've charted it before. I don't know if I see it on my list. I will add it. BCN, BTC, is it a new one? Bytecoin. Let's take a look here. Yeah, it's a new one, right? So it's just added to Binance. Let me just check out the daily chart, and you can't even really see it because it's so new. So it's just added to Binance. Yeah, beginning of May. So let's go to the 4-hour chart. Let's take a look. There's not a lot of volume, so you want to be careful with anything that has a lack of liquidity. I know that's the case on Bittrex, and because I always, you know, Big Jonas is on Bittrex. He's always showing me these coins with nothing traded. So there needs to be volume, because weak volume is a weak signal. So that's something you have to kind of keep in mind. So I can give analysis in this, but the volume is weak, so the signals will be weak. That being said, the chart looks weak. I mean, to make sense of it, it continues to break support. There are these mini bounces, but there's not a ton of buying volume, of buy pressure. On-balance volume is flat, so at least it's not going down. So this could just be people getting bored with it. I mean, there's really no support. Do you know if this is listed on another exchange somewhere else, the Crimson Lion? prior to Binance, it had similar spikes in the beginning. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these. Here's the thing: when there's not a lot of money going through this on a daily basis. So let's say there's only I don't know, $100,000 of total traded volume on this in a day, and maybe that's way more than it is. But if that's the case, a big bankroll, a big stack or whatnot can come in and they can manipulate it. They can move it. They can put in buy walls, sell walls. They can scare retail. They can do like hidden orders. There's all sorts of tricks that you can do when you have money. So I would be careful with anything with low volume. This one looks weak. I don't really know anything about the FA. I don't know what his deal is, but yeah, Polynex. Yeah, I mean, clearly it looks weak. And it appears to have already broken support from when it was listed on Binance. So there's really no support. So it's hard to say, watch for a bounce to whatever level. Oh man, it's only at 34 Satoshis. I mean, this one could kind of go down, could go down to teens. So you got to be really careful. This is not one that looks safe or promising, would be my opinion on that one, my friend. Any guys have any other requests? I'm just going to keep on churning through here. For the people who are not watching now and they want to watch later, I want to get as many of these done for them as I can. Vet, VET. I actually don't have that one up yet. Vet, you're welcome. Vet, you're welcome, the Crimson Lion. Let's take a look. Oh, I mean, this is another one that just added to Binance. There's really not much to say about this one. There's no TA there, really. Quark Chain, I haven't heard of that one. QKC. I'll do this one, and then I'm going to jump over to Bitcoin. What kept you guys waiting long enough? Okay, so Quarkcoin's trying to put in an inverse head and shoulders. You can see how we had a shoulder, a head, and a potential shoulder, but it really didn't break the neckline right here, which would have been at 1040. So you've seen this one in the bullish signals guide. So yeah, it was rejected at the neckline. So this is actually quite bearish. Although, yeah, it's still bearish, even though you have really strong on-balance volume. So, I mean, here's the thing. So there's a general principle where, say you have like a head and shoulders top, and which is a bearish reversal pattern. If instead the bulls are able to break through that pattern, so basically the bullish break of a bearish pattern has extra significance. It's very bullish. And the bearish break, like we're seeing here, this bearish rejection of the neckline, a bearish break of a bullish pattern tends to be quite bearish. So even though the on-balance volume is strong, I would be careful here, because you can see we had a really nice buy. We had a really nice buy volume here, almost a morning star. You could call that a morning star pattern, especially where you had the most volume on the third candle after the doji. Gave it all back. So something is not right here. To frag skins, what would you look for in an entry setup for WAN, WAN chain or WAN chain? What would I look for? I'd look for, well, for here in this chart, I'd look for some strength. If you're going to play it for a short bounce, you might be in a decent spot because you've caught it with oversold RSI, and you just had two green candles after 9, 3, 6. After 7 red candles, you have 2 green candles in a row. Although we're breaking that low here, so we're still okay. We're still inside this candle's low, which is 1890. So you see the lower wick on this candle, 1890. So the bullish setup actually could remain in effect in this as long as 1890 holds. And you do have an oversold RSI, so you may see a mini bounce here. At most, I'd be looking for this brown line, which is the middle Bollinger Band, which is set to the default, the 20-period simple moving average. So what would I look for? I would probably, if you were wanting to play this one, this would be a decent spot to maybe start to scale in here. And you would set your stop loss with the low of the day here on this candle like 10 hours ago. I'm going to go ahead and jump into Bitcoin. And I primarily right, so this is where we want to be. Let's take a look. I want to screen share. Looks like I'm not sharing the screen. Pardon me, folks. I appreciate the patience as. All right, folks, I am back. Sorry about that. I guess I got disconnected. So look, we had this. I was just pointing out, we do have this nice doji. A doji is a candle where there's really no body. No, it's called a real body. There's no real candle body. And in this case, a doji means indecision, and it also means a reduction of force from the prior trend. So in this case, the prior trend is bearish. We have this big red candle, and then we have the doji signifying that force is losing power. So that's one early signal, and also it's in that area of logical horizontal support. So we do have an oversold RSI. The 4-hour picture, I think, is decent if you want to try to play it for a flip. But let's just kind of zoom out here for a little broader perspective. Let's see. So daily chart, we're seeing, unfortunately for the bulls, we're seeing an accelerating bear volume. Let's see. I'm just going to jump back to chat. Make sure you guys hear me okay. Let's see there. Okay, we're good to go. Sorry about that. So what's notable is we are seeing accelerating bear volume. So you could argue we had a hanging man candle here. Essentially the hanging man that's been confirmed by this Maribozu. And the size of this candle, like I just spoke about earlier, actually suggests suggests there's going to be some bearish continuation. So the daily chart actually suggests to me we should probably retest the 73 to 7,400 area minimally, given kind of, like I said, the increasing bear volume. We have our high here in the daily chart. So we put in our lower high. So we have our, zooming back out, we have our series of double top here, lower high from, let's see, January lower high, and then we have our February lower high. Then we have the early May lower high. And now we're putting in a July lower high, late July. However, we have higher low. There's one low there, and we kind of held this low here. So we still technically, you can argue, have the higher lows. Boom, one, another higher low here. So if we're looking for an equilibrium, pattern, we have our higher low, lower high. We want to see another higher low, and then perhaps another lower high, and then maybe a decision. So maybe this plays out over the next 2 weeks, and it kind of decides somewhere around the 7,700s. So the daily chart is more bearish than the 4-hour chart. The 4-hour chart, is decent if you want to try to scale in here. This would be probably your first level, and then here, I mean, I'd be shocked if we break through all this support. So you could probably set a stop loss on the low of this candle, which was 72.21. So keep an eye on that. And then, like I talked about before, what Nissan talks about in after candlesticks, the middle of this green candle would be a support. So that would be 7011. So we'll keep an eye on that. But the 4-hour is a little more bullish than the daily, the long and the short. We're going to do the other majors, and then we will wrap it up. Looks to me on the 4-hour like a bearish continuation pattern, potentially a bearish pennant. here where we have our flagpole and we have the lower highs and higher lows. So this looks like a bearish continuation pattern to me. Although, I mean, you're at some pretty serious support here. You want to hold this level, but at least the candle pattern to me is bearish. Although we do have an oversold condition, but it's already recovered a little bit. So you might see a little bit of sideways as this pennant finishes. Maybe the RSI gets up to like, I don't know, 32 on the 4 hour, and then it can kind of break down again because it's kind of reset itself. So I am bearish on Ethereum short term. Look at that pinch, Bollinger Band pinch. I'm going to remove my old markings. Look at that Bollinger Band pinch on the daily chart. Bollinger Bands here. When they pinch, when they get tighter, when they squeeze, it suggests a break, up or down is imminent. Doesn't mean necessarily one way, but it kind of hints that the consolidation period would be coming to an end. So Ethereum daily. So the 4 hour, I'm bearish. Daily's not so bad because you've got, you're kind of holding these lows. So low 1, low 2. You don't really want to break this low, but if it does, as long as you can hold a candle close above 420. If you can see, I use the candle close to decide my positions. And I would say if you candle close above 420, you're still okay here on the daily chart. If not, I think you're probably going to see a lot of consolidation right in the high 300s. That would be the next step. Let's take a look at Litecoin. Let's go to the 4 hour first. Yeah, it's still bearish. It's a bearish continuation pattern. This is a bearish flag where you have higher highs and higher lows after a downtrend. So this to me would be a bearish flag or perhaps a bearish rising wedge consolidation pattern. Zooming out. You've got a bunch of lower support. You could very easily break this and just hang around at 74. So 4 hours short-term bearish in my view. Daily still okay, similar to Ethereum. So on the daily, if you can hold a daily close above 74.031, I think you're still okay. And we'll do Bitcoin Cash. Bitcoin Cash, Coinbase. Is that where I want to do it? Or do I want to do it on like Bitfinex or USD? Go to Bitfinex. Just to stay consistent, same exchange for all the majors. And daily, let's go 4 hour. Bitcoin Cash 4 hour bearish consolidation pattern, bearish pennant. But not as bad, actually. I mean, it's kind of trading a little bit inside. I mean, look at these really small candle bodies. I talked about that before. So this shows you the bear force, like the bulls are rejecting lower prices and the bear force is running out of power. You now have, well, this candle just started 3.5 hours. So these two really small candle bodies, you don't see a ton of buy volume. So bears could step in at any point and just kind of, push you down for another leg. I'm just kind of taking a look for a little bit of divergence, little bullish divergence in the on-balance volume. If you note the lower lows, okay, on price, you have slightly higher or at least flat. So this would be a weak bullish divergence. So that is somewhat notable. This looks a little bit better. So after Bitcoin, I think this 4 hour chart looks the best. It looks certainly better than the Ethereum and Litecoin on the 4 hour. Daily chart also looks better than Litecoin and Ethereum. You're nowhere near testing this higher low here. So Bitcoin Cash looks a little better actually than the other two. Daily chart's not too shabby. I think ideally you want to see close 765. So you're close. You want to see a candle close above 765 to kind of continue that bullish momentum. And you're in danger here of losing the middle Bollinger MA20 support. So let us take a look at the chat room. Any last requests before I leave? Any last requests? That's all right. Let's see what everyone's asking. What would I suggest to do? Lucky is asking me a question about, I have 50% of my bags in alts and I have been writing them down. Okay. A lot of people have been doing that, I would think. I'm starting to feel the pain, but if I feel I feel like the bottom is near. So here's the thing. I don't know where the bottom is, but as a general principle, as a general principle, right? You want to be buying the blood and selling the enthusiasm, right? If you're continually selling the bottom and buying the top, if you're continually selling into red and buying into green, it's just not going to work out well. So you have to ask yourself, why did you get into this position? Why are you holding those bags? Did you establish a trade without a stop loss? Well, like, did you not have a trade plan? So it's one thing to just buy it and hope it goes up, but what was your plan? Because hopefully you had a rationale or a logic, potentially a candle signal, or potentially a support level which you believe would hold. So what you want to do next time, first of all, is you want to always have a stop loss in mind, and because it's really hard to let go of something. You know, there's a sunk cost fallacy where once your money's in there, you either keep buying it, you keep averaging down, and you feel like you don't want to waste the money you already have in there. What you have to do is take disciplined small losses. I have a tweet I put out which I'm proud of, I guess, and what it said was, refusing to take a small loss will often lead to the opportunity to refuse to take a big loss. So it's like if you refuse to take that stop loss, you know, in a week you're gonna be facing a bigger loss. So what would you do? I think you have to ask yourself if you can afford to lose the money, right? Because you should never be putting anything in you can't afford to lose. Number one. Number two, is there a rationale for holding in the trade? What does the chart look like? Is there a support level which needs to hold? Pardon me, I'm just going to take a drink. So it's really up to you. Pardon me. So, I mean, I think we're probably much closer to the bottom than we are to the top as far as altcoins go. And we did talk about Bitcoin dominance being so high. So I really can't tell you what to do. I would suggest you examine each position and try to make an educated guess about where you think the bottom is. How do you determine your risk and reward ratios? Just by looking. So Fragskins, how do you determine your risk to reward ratios? Just by looking at support and resistance? Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair way to look at it. I think you have to ask yourself where in the channel you're buying. You know, because you're always buying. You're buying from someone who bought lower than you, always, as a general principle, right? So are you buying at the bottom, or are you buying after like a bullish break? You know, like, you know, are you buying at the bottom of the bull flag, or did you buy when the bull flag broke? It really depends on your trading style. There's a lot of ways to measure that. For example, with a bull flag, if you bought on the bull flag break, you can take the height of the flag, not the pole, but the actual flag, and you can kind of project out a one-to-one a target, right? Same with, like, we just had that. Pardon me 1 second. Sorry, I had to hit the cough button. We just had the Bitcoin inverse head and shoulders reversal. So you could take a target, you can take the length of the head to the neckline, which I believe was about 1,000, and you can kind of project out a target, which was 700 to 800. We hit that. We went to 82. But so you can determine your risk ratio based on where are you buying in the channel. Are you buying the bottom? Are you buying the middle? Are you buying on the break? You know, you want to think about law of averages. You know, if you're buying when the RSI is over 80, you know, it's probably not going to work out well for you. So you've got to kind of look at it that way. I like to buy oversold, really oversold in general, but I will also jump into a position on a clear bull break. But I try to do that when the RSI is low. So you see what I'm saying? A bull break on oversold conditions is a really nice risk reward. And I would try to do that. And remember, it's a lot like poker. I mean, you can just wait for a really good setup. You don't have to play every decent looking chart in front of you. You don't have to play every time someone tweets that something's going to go to the moon. I mean, you don't have to play it. You could just sit there, literally just sit there in cash and just wait for a really good setup. Because if you do that, you'll have just much less downside. And why don't you just paper trade? You can paper trade those other ones you were thinking about. You know, if it's on the edge and you're not sure if you should do it, you know, put it in an Excel spreadsheet and say, I just bought, you know, $5,000 worth at this price, and just paper trade it if you're not sure. what I'm basically saying is be really selective. You don't, there's, you know, the market's open 24/7. Okay. So you can just wait for a really good opportunity. And when you do that, it's just so much easier. It's so, because it's so hard to counter, to trade against a trend, right? It's hard to, in a downtrend, it's hard to keep trying to guess the bottom just to get a 5% bounce. I mean, it's just miserable. Let's see, any more questions here before we wrap up? Where is it best to margin trade? Bitfinex wants 10K to enter, and BitMEX won't allow Americans. I will be completely honest. I don't have a lot of experience with margin trading, so I don't know that I want to give too much advice. I would really probably just the ones you mentioned, Bitfinex and BitMEX would be the ones I would tell you to check out. So I would just apologize and say it's not my area of expertise, and I don't want to step out of line on that. Mr. Anderson, what's your question? Okay, absolutely. So simple moving average and MA, it's the same thing. And MA is a simple moving average. The difference is between an SMA and an EMA. I'm going to type this out. SMA, EMA. EMA is an exponential moving average. EMA is an exponential moving average. What that does is that puts more weight, more emphasis on the data closer to where you are. So another way of saying that would be, let's say we're talking about, let's say the moving average is based on, okay, so every day you go out, you know, last week, 2 weeks out, two weeks ago, every day you go further into the past, the data from that day has less weight when it's kind of formulating that average. So that's why a lot of scalpers or flippers especially will use an exponential moving average, as it kind of puts more weight in kind of the current in the closest candles to you. Pardon me, that's the difference between EMA and SMA. Pax Justica, I am Big Cheds. I am on Twitter at Big Cheds. I go by Cheds Trading as well. Anyone have any more requests before we head out? Any questions? I'll just wait a few more minutes. Any questions or, you know, tokens, coins you guys want me to look at? And I think I'll be doing these maybe once a week or every couple of weeks, something like that. So I look forward to doing these. And if you can save up your questions, and this is a good format to talk about them. I don't really see any more requests. Do you have any other long-term bags? Asks Frag Skins. I don't really like to talk about what I trade, but I do. I put everything in a cold wallet. Whatever I play, I try to put it in a cold wallet. That way, I'm not tempted to flip it too much, and it helps me to take the motion out. And right now, I am holding. Among that list that I mentioned that's going on to Coinbase, I'm holding several of those as a kind of spread bet in cold storage. And that just works for me. So, you know, and I do operate on GDAX or Coinbase Pro sometimes, and we'll make some trades with the major coins, just depending on what I'm into. It also depends on what's going on in my life, how much time I have to devote to trading, how much I can watch it, and all that. But it is pretty well known. My favorite project would be ZRX, is my favorite project. And 10X. Okay, is that someone's asking me about 10X. Is that like what's the symbol for that? 10X. Okay, pay BTC. Let's take a look. Pay BTC. Me, myself, and I is asking about Pay BTC. All right, let's take a look at this. All right, we still have our higher lows, but we have a lower high. I mean, look at that. Bulls tried to rally here, and it's kind of a gravestone doji. This is the daily chart. Kind of a gravestone doji, even with that lower shadow. But there wasn't a ton of volume on it. So this is actually decent. This is still kind of a bullish consolidation pattern for me. Especially, look at the on-balance volume. On-balance volume is nice and strong. Look where the RSI is. And the stock RSI has fully reset. So I actually think this is pretty decent between me and you and the whole world. We did break this candle though, unfortunately, but there's not a lot of conviction. There's no bearish conviction, right? You're looking for clues. You have bullish conviction here. You have that nice, buy pressure, but it gave it back, but it hasn't given all of it back yet. And on balance volume is strong. So I actually think this one looked pretty good. But I would definitely, I would probably make a stop loss around the 9,400 area. If this support level breaks, forget about it because you've given up everything that you did here. So, I'm hesitantly, cautiously bullish, if that's a phrase on this one. All right, I guess we shall wrap it up. I want to thank you guys for being Bitcoin Live members. We couldn't do it without you. It is a community experience, and at least speaking for myself, I feed off the energy that I get from you guys when I put out some signals guides. I love the feedback from you about what you like, and I know we look forward to adding more content, different content, and kind of growing as a platform. And we're happy you guys are here early on, we're only a couple months out. And I think it's pretty special that you guys could be here at the beginning with us. So I want to thank you once again. Stay safe out there in your trades. I just want to, before I go, emphasize one last time, you could be really selective. The market's open all the time. The one thing you don't want to do is find yourself being swayed by social momentum. When you see people talking about something and how great it is, they're probably selling. It's just a general concept, right? People are quiet when they're loading and they're loud when they're selling. And it's just how it works. Maybe it's counterintuitive, but you have to realize it and think about it that way. So you can be selective, wait for a really good, really good setup. If you're trying to flip, wait for that, 1 hour really oversold RSI, or if you're a daily trader, longer term, wait for like a confirmation on a daily chart of a bullish reversal, and have your stop loss. So have a plan, stick to the plan, and thank you guys for coming tonight. This is Big Cheds signing out. Take care.